Hi, property people. Thanks for joining us today. As always, we will be sharing ideas, experiences, problems, and solutions for property people like you. Our interviews will get you to know some of the most active professionals in the industry that have achieved some pretty impressive stuff. Hearing about their successes, failures, strategies, and insights, we really hope you enjoy. Hi, property people. Thank you for joining us today. Today, I'm really pleased to be joined with Aaron Koch. Aaron is not only a good friend of mine, but one of the busiest guys in property that I know. He's got a background in risk management and has taken his entrepreneurial mindset into business and investment, into the business and investment world, focusing on real estate as his investment vehicle. So recently, Aaron's gone full-time into property. Alongside his wife. He's just started a family, so he's uber busy. Congrats to you on that, by the way.
Thank
and
you.
To keep yourself extra super duper double busy, Aaron is the host of the Square Mile Property Meet, which is one of the best independent meets in London, in my opinion, and actually one of the pioneers of a very specific structure, which gets a lot more engagement from all the participants. So I always enjoy going to that one. But first and foremost, thank you for joining us today, Aaron.
Thanks for having me, Sam. Pleasure
Great.
to have you.
I wanted to start with, I always like to get to know people, and I think it's always, we were just discussing earlier, autobiographical, getting to know a little bit about how your journey started, because you've come a very long way to be with us in England and to be part of this property market. So what I want to know is, who were you at school? Did you always want to get into property? Was that always something, or did you want to be a pilot or ice cream maker?
That is a very good question, Sam. No one has asked me this question before. A lot of people are asking me what have I done recently. But when I was at school, believe it or not, I was a naughty boy. I didn't want to study. It was about, when I was in the high school, I didn't want to study. I do not like to study. But right before I go to uni, I realized that I had to do something with my life. So when I say I'm naughty, is that I try to skip classes. I sleep at class. Or do also things like I like playing guitars. Like the worst thing is that we even play guitars like when teacher teaching at the front, at the back. So that's how naughty I am. I was during high school. It's just not me. No, it's just that I don't like it. But when before I go into before uni, I just come to a realization that I had to make changes in my life. I had to do something. Otherwise, I can't continue with who I was at that time. And then I made the decision that I had to work really hard. But before that, let me give you some background. When I say I was a naughty boy, I don't study, and I was at the bottom of the class. Like we have 15 classes. I was at the last of the 15. So I'm not a high achiever. I always I'm very lack of confidence as well. But right before I go into university, like 2 years before that, I made a decision that I had to make changes in my life. So if I always have a dream that I want to be an successful, of course, but I'm not doing the work at that time. And then I realized that my strength is really in the mathematics. I'm interested in finance, economics. What I did was I spoke to my friend that I want to be an actuary. So if anyone do not know what is actuary, the actuary is a mathematician in insurance and investment industry. So it's one of the, basically study the hardest maths you can think of in the universe.
Jesus Christ. So that's like statistics and
statistics. Okay. So insurance, investment, so it's the most complex financial mathematics you can think of. And then I told my maths teachers, what they told me is that, are you kidding, Aaron? Are you kidding? Are you sure? They're laughing at me. They're joking. And then I said, I'm sure. I want to do it. I want to do it. I made that decision. And then I studied really, really hard, super hard, days and nights, right before the university life, like A-levels, equivalent in Canada at that time. I started really hard in the morning, at night, and when people go out, I just keep on banging and study. And then I managed to get to the world top university in actuarial science in
Amazing.
Canada. It was the University of Waterloo at that time. So it's come from like basically at the bottom of the class, like people laughing at me, maths teacher laughing at me, my friends laughing at me. And it's a transformation that the time that I made the decision, I want to do it. And then I did it at that time. And went into university, and then I came to UK to do further studies. So that's the rest is history.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. One thing that, because I've known you, in terms of what you've achieved as well, since I've known you, is you've got an amazing mindset. So where does that come from?
Can you elaborate what kind of
Well,
like
when I say amazing, it's really you're driven, and everything that you've said that you were going to do, you end up doing it. So including this
yeah,
actuary. So now
yeah.
that I know that you did that at an early age, which I didn't know previously, it seems
Uh-huh.
that you've got something about you that when you put your mind to it, you get it done. Where have you got any idea? I mean, were your folks like that? Were any of your friends like that? Were any of your, like, the people that you used to read books about, business people that you looked up to, or like that? Or where does that come from? Any idea?
Not really, to be honest. It's not coming from anyone, and it's not coming from external factor. I'm thinking it's more coming from my internal, my
Okay.
desire, and the decision that I made to get something and get to where I want to be. So another big example is that to find a job in the UK, for a lot of people, it might be normal. If you're living in the UK, you got citizenship. So for me, I come from Malaysia, so a lot of people at that time when I graduated, is super hard to get a job in the UK, because you basically, for the employer to employ us outside European
Yeah.
Union, the company basically need to prove to the UK government that they cannot hire local people before they hire us. So it's like double entry for us. Like, it's not only that less company willing to accept us, and also even though they accept us, it tend to be smaller company even harder. So the big company might have budget to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of in a small and medium company that I started in the investment consultancy. So it's really hard. Like at that time, like it was a lengthy process. I had to go through a lot of interview assessment. It's basically it's a no's and a no's and a rejections over rejections over rejection over rejections. Every few days you got rejection. It lasts for years, because I
Yeah.
started to look for my job when I was in the degree final year. Not even that, like before that, final internship is as well. So is I had years of rejections, and trying to get to where I want to be is to just getting one job in the UK. So easily I spent hundreds and hundreds of hours into getting that job, preparing, reassessing, interview, review, changing based on feedback, and just keep going. And the mindset is simple. It's really focusing on what I really want. So
Yeah.
that one thing is to focusing on that. Like anything else is secondary. So that's the sole focus at that time.
That makes sense. So you have a desire. It comes to you. The inspiration is from yourself, from this inner desire to be able to do one particular thing that you set your mind to. For whatever
Yes.
reason that is, you've just agreed with yourself that you're going to do it, and you end
Yeah.
up doing it.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Not many people have that self-drive. They need external inspiration, or they need somebody to be able to push them into a particular, or to inspire them to do something. But I think if you've got a why, that generally helps, right?
It's hard, Sam. I'm not trying to lie. Like even though like at that time I'm not constantly 100% all the time motivated. So there was time that I'm down. I have self doubt. So
Yeah.
it's like it's just about like the what's in me is that the harder you push me to the bottom, the harder
Yeah.
I will bounce.
Bounce back. Yeah.
That's kind of like my mindset, if you like to say. So for example, at that time, my teachers, my My friend just crushed me at that time. There's no one in the world is believing in me at that time. No one, not even myself. I don't believe in myself. Same as finding a job, like just keep crushing me. A lot of big companies, like people around me, a lot of people given up. People who are performing better than myself, better than in terms of academically or other areas, they might or might not get a job. Like most people around me at that time, like the people not from the UK, have left the country because it's simply not easy. They just give up.
It reminds me of the analogy of the diamond under incredible pressure.
Yes, yeah,
That's
that's
where
right.
that comes from.
Diamond was created because of the pressure,
Yeah.
and I believe wine as well. So when you crush the grapes,
Right.
you get a wine because you get crushed.
You're like a fine wine, Aaron. You're like a fine wine. so,
Thank
so,
you. Thank you.
what actually I'd like to also touch upon is your career within risk
Hmm.
management.
Hmm.
You've, I mean, I would like you to actually share the size and stature of the kind of firm that you've been working with, and
Hmm.
that's to do with statistics and actuary, right? You actually went
Yeah.
into that field and you've been practicing. So,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that career and what it was all about.
Sure. Actuarial is a broader term, like we involve in pension, insurance, investment, finance in general. But I chose to specialize in investment, so that's my passion. Always been my passion. And what we do is that I joined the investment consultancy firm. Is one of the top in the UK. We at that time, I left now, but the company itself, we advise large pension funds and insurance companies. The funds range from a few hundred million to 10 to 20 billion pounds. So it's one of the biggest money you can think
Wow.
of. And they are institutional investors. So all our clients are institutional investors. So our main job is to advise them on their investment strategy. So it's a pure investment advice and help them to reach their long-term goal.
And typically, when we're talking about institutional investors, are these pension funds? Are they sovereign funds? Are they a mix,
Yeah.
or is it? Yeah.
Yeah. So when we talk about institutional investors as a whole, you can think of pension funds, insurance companies, sovereign wealth fund, wealth managers. Um, those are the top kind of like if you think about aggregation of the money and where is the biggest pot of money, those are the biggest pot because a lot of people are contributing to pensions every
Yeah.
month, and that's why it accumulate a big pot of the money. So that's where those are the clients that we advise on the corporate level,
Yeah.
who make a decision to invest in the long term. And of course, because the team that I was in was in, was in the modeling team and risk management, investment strategy. So we basically deal with all the
Yeah.
numbers you can think of, like how to look at the returns, how to look at the risks and do the modeling, and how to project everything forward.
Very, very interesting. So you're advising them on, are they coming to you with what they want to invest in and saying, please do the analysis on it? Or are you coming up with ideas and vehicles for them to invest in,
So
or
it's
both?
kind of like both. Like for defined benefit pension funds in the UK, there's a requirement from the regulator that they need to have investment advisor. So
Right.
basically, all of them need an investment advisor anyway. So our clients, when they come to us, we look at where they are and where they want to go, and how can we help them to get there in a sensible way, looking at the return and risk, and what can we do to help them to reach their goal.
Interesting. So are they looking purely at real estate, or are they looking at gold, or are they looking at stocks and shares? Are they looking? I mean, what sort of how diversified is the investment book that they're looking at and that you're looking at and
Yeah,
analyzing?
that's a really good question, Sam. Like we it would be everything. It would be everything you can think of, like bonds, shares, real estate, alternative. But it will be everything. But at the end of the day, for every investment, for the big corporate, from to individual level for like us, is all about your investment objective. What are you trying
Right.
to achieve? So that really depends on what you want to achieve. Like for example, for property investing, you want to achieve something in a very short time and very fast, and you might need to go into very risky strategy. Or you might, if you don't mind, like invest for 5 to 10 years to get like a few thousand cash flow per month. You might invest in buy to let, single lets,
Yeah.
and take time. So it's all depend on your investment objective. What are you trying to achieve, and how long you want to achieve, and how much capital you have to start with.
Absolutely. So yeah, so you have to analyze what's their investment objective. Is it fair to say as well for these large institutional investors that generally they're just trying to beat inflation? Is that a fair statement?
Not quite. No, not quite. That's not the mindset we have. Like the mindset is all about investment objective. So
Right.
what are you trying to achieve, and how do you get there?
But
So
if they're trying to, let's say, if like inflation's at 2% and you've got, you know, a £3 billion fund, then they're saying, you know what, if we can get away with 3-4%, then at least we're making some money because it's obviously a large amount, and we're also
yeah.
not devaluing our fund by having it sit below returns below inflation. Is that ever talked about, or is it, you know, that's
Mm,
just not even a thing?
that is part of a story that can be discussed. That can be discussed. Of course, like it's good to have um, return higher than inflation, but it's not always the case. Depend on type of investors as well. I'm not sure how is this going to be more relevant to property. So for a lot of for the defined benefit pensions, because their liability are like a contractual nature. Okay,
Yeah.
so their liability is contractual nature, and because of that, they behave like a government bond.
Right.
Okay, because the liability behave like a government bond, so it's better for those investors invest decent amount in government bonds. Okay, so because when the liability move up, you want your asset to move up as well,
Yeah.
and liabilities go down, you want the asset go down as well. So it's not about beating the inflations or getting high return, it's about matching the asset and liability. That's what the big institutions like insurance companies, banks, and those pension funds, that's what they're thinking about. So that's why I'm saying that it's depend on your objective as well. So for
Right.
them, the objective is to bridge the gap of assets and liability. So
Right.
I think from
That's
your perspective, thinking
yeah.
about as the return side is more about maybe about wealth managers' perspective, like to
Right.
maximize the return and reduce risk. So it depends on. That's why I'm saying it depends on your investment objective, and yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because you hear a lot about PRS schemes being forward funded by pension funds and this kind of thing, and it's always interesting to see what is driving that decision, why they're looking for such types of investments, and why they're so willing to forward fund or forward purchase these blocks. What is the driving factor? And obviously, with where your career has gone, you've been able to see
Mm-hmm.
the inner mechanics of that and the decision making
Mm-hmm.
process, which is
Mm-hmm.
incredibly interesting. But regarding your investments and how
Sure.
you've started to pivot out of full-time employment and into
Mm-hmm.
full-time property, tell us a little bit about how that journey started, and what really got you into property rather than all of these other alternative assets and vehicles that you could have jumped into.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good question, Sam. I always, when I was young, I said I didn't study much, but I always have something in mind. Like I always wanted to be in business and investing. That's why I spent my whole career and my almost my life like studying about investment and mathematics, financial maths. So always want to be in investment and business. And about 15 years ago, I studied the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm sure a lot of people
Yeah.
came across this book, and that's kind of reaffirmed my idea that I have to get into business and investment. And then I go through normal route. I go to university, I got a master's degree, and then get into investment consulting for 6 years. And while I was working, I had to do something. I had to do something in my life to make that transition, and that's why I get myself educated to learn about property. And then what I found is that property is not only just an investment that you can invest in, but it allows you to build a business around the property. That's what I like about it. And of course, there's a lot of benefits of investing in property. It is a real asset. It's backed by bricks and mortar. It is long-term returns. We are expecting those returns are going to match to inflation.
Yeah, yeah,
In the
yeah.
long term. So that's why I like about property, and it can build a business around it, and very little you can rarely do it with the stocks and shares, with the bonds as well, and maybe you can, but that's my preference, to have something real assets and
Yeah.
that can generate long-term wealth. If you look at the wealthiest people in the world, almost all of them have kind of some shape or form having a property portfolio.
A strong, yeah, absolutely. I think tangible assets,
Yeah.
investments with that have tangible assets,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things that I like about them as well, I agree, is that the rental incomes are
Mm-hmm.
generally linked to inflation,
Yeah.
which can make them kind of to a certain extent they are recession proof as well, because there's always a demand
Mm-hmm.
for them. Which, so
Yeah.
I agree with that. That's very much similar reasons to a lot of the investors that I speak with. We
Mm-hmm.
all see properties, the value in it in a similar
Mm-hmm.
way. So in terms of there's so many different ways to invest in property. So you've got kind of buy
Sure.
to let, you've got HMOs, you've got flips, you've got large scale
Uh-huh.
developments. What was your first one that you did that do you remember your first one? What
Yeah,
did it look like? Was
absolutely.
it a flip? Was it a buy to let?
It was a HMO. So we decided to go straight to HMO. I know a lot of people saying that start small, start single let, buy to let. And because what we found is that the time that we're going to find a good buy to let deals, we might as well spend the time to find a good HMO deals to get started.
Yeah.
And that's how we decided to choose, because we want to choose a strategy that is high yield, high cash flow, that can generate cash flow for us to hit our shorter term objectives. So that's why we go to HMO. That's one of the mistakes we made in the beginning, is that we started actually looking at single lets, and we
Right.
spend months and months and months and look for it. And then what we realized that we're gonna, like, after all the work, we're gonna get about net 200 cash flow. If you're going
Yeah.
to go for HMO, you're going to get £1,000 cash flow. So we decided at that time we're going to do HMO, and we have various ways to reduce the risk as well. So we know that we haven't done it before at that time. So we work with people, the builders have done it many, many times. We work with letting HMO specialized in, so letting agents specialized in HMO. So all these things together, we try to make it work with the right expertise and team around us.
That's very interesting. Somebody that I know has once told me, Sam, be bold and think big. And I read a book. Do you know Stephen Schwarzman, the guy from Blackstone? He basically wrote a book,
Mm-hmm.
and he was saying, look, to achieve a big goal, it's about the same amount of effort as to achieve a small one, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you have a slightly bigger target, and the effort's going to be the same, but the result's going to be quite different. And I did a similar thing as well back in 2015 when I was getting through it, ready to go again, and I
Mm-hmm.
thought, let's buy to lets back in pre 2008 were quite good actually overall,
Mm-hmm.
if you found a good deal, but in this market since 2008, they don't really yield that well. Or if they
Mm.
do yield well, if you go up to certain areas like the northeast of England, which is where I'm
Yeah.
from, or you go to the northwest, certain parts of Wales, you can get a really high yielding asset, and you can get a really good
Mm-hmm.
return on your money. But then the amount of cash flow that you get at the end of every month, for the
Mm-hmm.
amount of risk, reward, and then effort,
Yeah.
when you calculate those three
Yeah.
things, doesn't quite add up. So some people still go for it because they want to start at the bottom of the property
Yeah.
ladder and work their way up. But you
Yeah.
decided, your risk analysis told you it's okay, jump a couple of rungs and
It's,
go for it.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's only one step up. It's not a multiple step up. It's not like a big conversion or development projects. It's
Right.
some. I think it's a one step up. It's not too far ahead as well. And there's a friend of mine, investor friend, like he has a huge portfolio in How, and what he found is that he once he has, that's why he did, like he started small and then built a large portfolio buy to let. What he found is that when one boiler breaks, it's kind of like wipe out a lot of the cash flow. So if you think
For the
about
whole
one or two
year.
thousand, yeah, like how many of buy to let cash flow you wipe out per month?
Yeah, exactly. I think when you're going to do that, you need to really have a huge portfolio so that you can do the kind of portfolio theory where most of them are going to make money and some of them are obviously not. And I
Yeah.
think that if you're going to do it at that level, that makes sense. So with the HMO that you first invested in,
Hmm.
did
Hmm.
you add any value to it, or was it an existing income generating HMO? How did you go about the first one?
Yeah, the first one is pretty simple. We bought a rundown property
Yeah,
in area that has high demand, on room demands, and then we turn it into 5 bed all en suite HMO. So it's high
amazing.
standard, than most other rooms you can find in the area. So that's what we do. So we add value by um, fully refurb and transform the whole house to 5 bedroom. Initially, like if you do it as a single let, it will be about £800 rent. But after we're doing the refurb, we can achieve like 2.5 grand per month.
That's really, really cool. The impressive thing is that you increase that income significantly.
Mm-hmm.
How hard, and you put the en suites in, which I'm a strong believer in. I
Uh-huh.
think especially in today's market, maybe 10, 15 years ago when you were doing splitting up stuff into bed sits,
Mm-hmm.
etc., the en suite wasn't as a standard a requirement by certain
Sure.
tenants. What did you find? How hard did you find to get those room rented out? Did you have huge vacancies at the beginning? Were they pre-let? How difficult was it?
Very easy to rent out with the ensuite, with the especially new property, new refurb, and with the ensuite at the right area is very easy to rent out.
Did you find, were they students, young professionals?
Those are the professionals. We specialize in like providing professionals accommodation.
Okay. And did you hang on to that property, or you sold it since?
No, we hang on with, we still have it right now. We still have it in our portfolio.
And is that something that you would like to do more of? Is it like you want to kind of grow an HMO portfolio, or have you had a kind of enough of that particular
Uh,
strategy? Do you like
yeah,
being a landlord, basically?
yeah, it's a good question. Like yeah, it's a good model. We like to keep it as much as we can. Like if we can, yeah, we like to keep it for the longer term. Yeah, we like HMO up to this point. Again, it's back to our investment objective and strategy that we have, because we want to build a high cash flow portfolio. So be able to allow myself and my wife have a covering our living expenses. So that is the objective. That's why we like HMO.
And you are living in London, but you have recently moved as you start a family.
Yes.
What's your take on location in terms of, you know, some people always say you should invest in your backyard because obviously it's easier for you commute to work and quality of life. My experience, just to share with you, is that
Sure.
to get high yielding assets in and
Yeah.
around London is really, really difficult,
Really
especially doing
difficult.
things like HMO and
Yeah.
residential.
Yeah.
So we've had to go a little bit further afield. What's your experience of all of that?
That is a $1 million question, Simon. That's, one of the top question people have been discussing, talk about, and myself and my wife, like we talk about all the time as well. So I think it's really simple and down to what works for you, what works
Yeah,
for you, and what you're trying to achieve. Because I square mile property meet, we have about 400 people in the
yeah,
community, and what I see is that most people actually have a full-time job and trying to build their portfolio.
correct.
Okay. So I see both kind of people. Like one is that they stick to close to London. Okay. And some people willing to travel beyond, like, Wales, like up north, They
Yeah.
travel
Yeah.
4 or 5 hours. They do it. So I see people and those two models work. Okay, so it's all up to what I'm seeing. Is all up to what are you comfortable with, what works for you, and what resources do you have, how much time do you have, and are you willing to travel, and what is the business model you're trying to build. So it's all about that, and what sacrifice are you willing to give up if you're going to travel like 3, 4, 5 hours every few weeks to your investment area. And some people are willing to do it. Some people take off their annual leave and go to view the property and block out a few days and go to the area and come back, and it works for them. And some people like me is that we get slightly closer to London, kind of halfway through. And
Yeah.
some people just decide to stay in London. And in London, you might need to be a bit more creative. Maybe you want to do rent to rent. And some
Yeah.
people do not mind to do deal sourcing. So it's all like a huge menu of what you can do. But at the end of the day, is that what works for you. And for us, it's about wealth creation in the long term. That's why we didn't go into rent to rent. Rent to rent seems attractive when we look at it. Like it seems like the ROI is very high. You get your money back very quickly, and then it's a 3 to 5 year contract. After that, you need to find the rent to rent again, and it's very labor intensive. So a lot of profits are made, or because of due to the management. So you have to manage the property. If you do not have time, if you're working full time in the city, and then you can't managing it, and how do you make the cash flow work in rent to rent? So that's why we decided to acquire property, buy property, and own it and do it up and hold for long term.
I like that you just said acquire property, because that's the name of your company.
That is it is actually born from one of the pain that we have. We paid a lot of money get ourselves educated at that time a few years ago, and what we found is that a lot of things we learn are very theoretical.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to practice, it just takes months and months and months to find our first deal. So we struggle to acquire a property.
Yeah.
At that time, it took us about more than a year to find our first property deal.
Wow.
And then that is why we call our company Acquire Property, because we are in the business of acquiring property. What I like the word acquire is that it's not only purchasing. You can do lease option, you can do exchange, delay completion. So creative strategy, you are also acquiring property.
And touching on those creative strategies, have you been able to execute any of them? I've lease options and assisted sales. I'd love to say that I've done loads, but I haven't. Have you found it easier at all by any chance?
We have one deal. We're nearly we're going to get it. We are very close. We had a conversation with a vendor almost 1 to 2 years, more than a year.
Wow.
And we are very close. We are very, very close to, we got everything agreed. We got like heads of term, we got to like lenders, everything is kind of a lineup. And what I found is that those creative strategy is, so it's a different world. So normal property investor, they look at the property and see what they can do, and then they make an offer. Okay. So for creative strategy, it's the other way around. It doesn't matter how the property looks like. It doesn't matter that much what the property is. It matters at the end when you buy it, but the focus is about the person. It's about the situations. And when you find the right situations, when the vendor willing to give the property to you to manage, while waiting for a period of time that you're going to buy from him or her in the future. And that is kind of like the creative things come out. So the vendors who do not need the money right now, okay, and you can basically offer them more than other people offer, and then strike a deal in the longer term. So you kind of like sign a contract.
I always say it's a perfect storm with these kinds of things. I mean, generally every deal that you strike, there has to be a perfect storm. You have to be offering the right amount at the right time and the right structure with the right set of terms. But certainly with lease options and you have to be able to have everything happen kind of at the right time in the right way for everyone to be in agreement.
And
Because
kind
it's
of
not
yes and no.
conventional.
It's kind of a yes and no. Like we don't look for lease options. So what we look for is the problems that a vendor is
Right.
facing. So it's more of the problem, not thinking about a lease option. I'm going to get lease option out of this. It's not the mindset we have. So it's more about the problem they're facing,
Yeah.
and what is their situation, and then we think about whether lease option can apply to this situation. Because think about if someone, the classic lease option example is that if someone are in debt and they need to sell the property very quickly, okay, they are in danger of getting repossessed. If they are not paying the mortgage next month, they might get repossessed and they will lose their house. Okay,
Yes.
they need to move quickly, and the speed of the purchase might not be able to reach their to help them, even though estate agents can't help them. Like even though a cash buyer, it might take weeks. You know that, Sam.
Even
Like
an auction might take 2 months, which
yeah,
they
it
need
might
the
take
money by the end of the month.
Yeah, but to do a lease option, it doesn't take months. It takes weeks.
Yeah.
To help them to secure that lease option, and then we take control of management of the property, and then we can pay the mortgages, and then we can rent out to someone else, and then we're going to purchase the property in the future. So it's kind of like, it's in the right situation. If you can find the right situation with the right person,
Yeah.
lease option is easy. But you're gonna find the right situation in the person to begin
You've got to
with.
find that perfect situation. So this is what
Yes.
I always use the analogy of footballers, right? So I used to play football a lot, and I was very good with my left foot, but that was about
Mm-hmm.
it. So if
Yeah.
you go out looking for property deals and you can only do one particular thing,
Uh-huh.
chances are you're leaving a lot of other deals on the table that could be structured in different ways. And these
Yeah.
creative strategies allow you to secure a deal using, the win-win mindset where everybody's getting
Yeah.
something out of it. But then that means you can kick with your right foot, you can use your head, you can score free kicks,
Yeah.
you can do all these different things, and that makes you much more of a valuable player.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of, is that a no money down deal? What's your take on no money down deals? Are they a thing, or are they little money down deals? What's your take on that? Give me your opinion.
Depend on how you look at it. Like there's no way you can find a zero money down deal, because every deal that you get into, even lease options or rent to rent, you got to pay some sort of legal fees to get in a contract. So there's 100%, there's no money down deal exists. I don't think. I think it's more like marketing headline for people to sell the course. So it's an eye catcher. But what I see is that when we say no money down, it's close to little money down. Is that you if you do a lease option, you might not need as much money compared to buying a house. For example, we talk about the lease option example. It can happen in London. It can happen in the 300 to 500,000 property, even a £1 million property. It can happen to that as well. So if you were to buy those property, you need a large deposit to buy it. But by securing lease option, you basically pay very little, virtually just the legal fees or some setup fee to get it going. And another part of no money down I can think of is to refinance your property as and pull most or all your money out. So those are the deals that I can see working,
Yeah.
and I saw people doing as well.
So I always think no money down. I get what they're saying, but like you say, it's little money down or it's no money left in. So
Yeah.
I think those are what they're trying to get at, right?
Yeah, and what about other people's money? So if you
Yeah.
do a, like say HMO, and then you got money left in the deal, and then you find a private investor to replace that money, and then basically there's no money of your own in the property, does it count as no money down?
Right, exactly. So well, yes. I mean, to none of your own money. That's it. So yeah, I think the no money down has subheadings that need to be clearly defined and understood. I think if people are sharing it and using it as a headline to grab people's attention. So in terms of your wife, Charlotte, one of the most
Sure.
loveliest ladies I know. How is it working? A lot of people are wondering, how is it
Yeah.
working together, mixing business and home life, and becoming a kind of a property power couple?
That's a very good question. A lot of people ask us as well. It's not easy, to be honest. It's not easy. A lot of clashes, like a lot of opinions, in terms of differing opinions in things, how we do things, and all sort of things. It's not easy to begin with.
Yeah,
But what we found out is that we try to work out the structure. What we do is that she take care of certain things in the business, I take care of another's part of things. So it's kind of split of responsibility to make it clear. And also what we learn also the decision making process. So like who make what decisions. So in the beginning, what we do is that all the decisions that we make, we discuss about it, and it takes us a long time to make every decisions. So
yeah,
what we found is that it's easier for one person to make certain decisions. So one person might deal with refurbishment, and that person going to make decision. Like everyone can input and give their opinions, but at the end of the day, it's the person who responsible for that department who make the decision. So I would say that up to now we still have differing in terms of our opinions and things, but at the end of the day, we both want the best of
yeah.
the business, and sometimes it's about taking a step back and zoom out and look at the things that we are discussing about how important it is to the business, and how much time should we be spending discussing about it. So if not, then it might be better for one person just go and do it and crack on.
Yeah, I've heard a few people that struggle with the whole kind of relationship and business thing. Well, some of them not even married yet, and they, and they just they're trying to spend more time together. In fact, so they're trying to do it in
Sure.
that sense, to think, oh, we'll be able to share this, that, and the other. But then when they see the reality is that actually there's a lot of conflict of opinions, and that conflict of opinions, when you're maybe at work or in a more of a professional environment, you act in a certain way because you can and you have to get the best out of each other. But when you're at home, maybe you're a little bit more relaxed,
Mm-hmm.
and over the dinner table, you should be talking about how what a lovely day you had, and instead you're talking business, and that's
Sure.
difficult.
Can I share one thing, Sam? uh,
Sure.
what I found is that in the beginning we kind of mix the business and the personal life together. So wherever we go, whatever we are doing, we talk about business, like from like in the morning to throughout the day and to the night and everything. And what we found is that is important to set aside time for just two of us
Yeah.
and talk non-business
Yeah.
and non-property. And what we found is that when we started to do it, it feels really strange. And we sit down and say, okay, today we're going to spend time together and we are not going to talk about property. and
There was
and
awkward
just like,
silences.
yeah, we started awkward silence. Okay, what now?
Both your brains are thinking, Jesus Christ, we've got all these other things that we need to discuss. And that's the thing, though. You know what? That's a beautiful thing, I think, in many ways, because it's you guys being aware and conscious, but
Mhm,
also at the same time passionate. So it's
mhm,
almost a good problem that you guys have got, that you're working through, and you're making the most of it. I mean,
mhm.
I think you're both great, and you've achieved such awesome
Thanks.
things. You're making investments whilst having a family, whilst carrying full-time jobs, and you always do it with a smile and a positive energy, which also you give out to this 400 strong community that you started literally from nothing. It was just out of pure passion.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about the Square Mile Property Meet, where that grew from, where it is today, because I think it's great. It's good to share.
Sure. I mean, like about 2 years ago, it started from just one person. The idea is simple. I work in the city full time, working full-time jobs. I want to connect with like-minded people and property investor in the city, who share the same kind of like environment and challenges, and navigate through all these together. So it just started from one person, really simple, to talk to people and have a coffee. And then I started to get a few more people who interested in property, and we just grew from there. So we started in a pub, and then we bring the group to the next level, invite speakers, and grow to where we are today, 400 people. But we grow this organically. We haven't paid any advertising to push out, so we just go organically and word of mouth. So our community is, most people are very close to each other, so we know people know each other for a long time, and then most people are working full-time in property. Sorry, no, the other way around. Most people are working
Yeah.
full-time in the city,
Yeah.
and also doing property investing and building a business at the same time. So so our community is about education, is about community, is about implementation and connections. So that's what I like about the community. And we meet in central London in Square Mile. I don't know if you heard about the name of Square Mile.
Tell us.
Okay, so the name of a square mile comes from the City of London. So if you Google City of London, the financial district in the UK, which is in London, this is before Canary Wharf. So it's the first historical financial district in London. If you Google it, it's called Square Mile.
Yeah.
So that's where the money is. So we are right in the middle of Square Mile. That's why I call the property meet Square Mile Property Meet, and that's where our professional people and city workers, we come together and then we want to invest in property. That's how it comes from. And also recently, thanks to COVID-19, is that we're going to bring this to people outside London and even beyond the UK as well. So I'm seeing this as opportunity, and a lot of people seeing the COVID-19 as a kind of like a challenge. There's no doubt there is a challenge, but every challenge and every threats, there's opportunities coming up. So that's
Yeah.
what I believe in.
The Square Mile Property Meet
Sure.
is a very famous, in my eyes, for being one of the first networking events that did participation and implementation based on what the speakers were talking about. So that I thought was really innovative, and that was what drew me to you in the first instance. I thought, you know what, I've been to a lot of these networking events, and after a while they could become a little bit samey, similar crowds and similar speakers, and it was time for somebody to do something slightly different. And since what you've done, I've noticed other people doing very, very similar things.
I can
Because
see
it's
that.
yeah, I mean, because it's super powerful, you know. It's as you say, a lot of people are learning things, but they're not really implementing them. They're going away with a bunch of knowledge and not knowing how to exercise it. And in a very short space of time, you've been able to carve out a period of being able to actually action some of the learnings in these, which has been really, really helpful. And I think that anybody that attends or hasn't attended yet should definitely think about attending the Square Mile, if not for any other reason that it's in the kind of the financial district of the UK, but because of that, I think that that's really valuable and powerful.
Absolutely.
The other thing that I thought was good about the Square Mile Property Meet is the community that you've grown. How has the community helped you further your own property investment? Do you find investors off the back of it? Do you find kind of mastermind sessions off the back of it? Has that helped you build your confidence in terms of the team that you have around you with brokers and solicitors? How has that networking helped you be a better investor?
A lot, helped me a lot. First of all, if you know me, I'm an introvert. I don't like to speak to people. I don't like to present in front of the people. That's not me. But I know that these are the things that will get to where I want to be in the future. And that is why I set up this meet, and I lead the team, and then lead the community as well, and put myself in front of so many people, if you like, the stage, and to present this and make things work. So so it's kind of like out of my comfort zone. So the first one we had was about 2 years ago, and the first formal networking event was up at Gherkins. So I was having like 40 people at that time. It's just like I was really, really nervous, to be honest with you, like to stand in front of so many people. But because I've done it so many times now, I get more comfortable of
Yeah.
doing it. It's not saying that I'm not nervous. It's just that I'm more comfortable to
Yeah.
be uncomfortable. So so that's one thing, is just be able, for myself as a personality development perspective, I be able to organize big events and be able to speak in front of people, and I able to connect with people. And also, of course, like my objective is to build a property portfolio and work with more investors. So is a lot of connection being made.
Yeah.
We have investors coming to us as well. So, and also on top of that is the learning, is the community, is to support each other. So what I like about Square Mile is that because it's our own independent meet, we have no agenda like selling any courses
Yeah.
at this point of time. We're not selling anything. So it's very easy for us to like to find a topic that's what the audience wants. So we're not talking about what is good for whoever kind of speak and going to sell courses,
Yeah.
but we talk about something that is useful for the audience. As you just said, like we have the topic, have the presentation, we have interactive sessions. It could be role play, group exercise, or case study, Q&A. So we make it relatable and implementable for the people who want to invest in property.
And what you told me just before as well about getting comfortable being uncomfortable, and what you were
Yeah.
saying right at the beginning, you know, the more pressure on your shoulders and, you know, your determination and focus, get shit done. I think that
Yeah.
these are the ingredients of an entrepreneur, somebody that's going to take on the business world. And it
Mm-hmm.
seems like you've definitely got those traits, having pulled off these things. Yeah, you're comfortable being uncomfortable, which is great. And you are connecting people. I'm sure that they're doing business with each other
Mm-hmm.
just as much as you're putting yourself in a position to keep furthering yourselves and improving.
Absolutely.
COVID-19, how
Yeah.
have you found the last 6 weeks, and where do you see the property market going in the next 6, 12, 24 months?
Good question. Do you mean like for the whole UK property market in general?
Yeah, so the UK property market, yeah, across the board.
Right. For our, it's for ourselves. I think it's the two things when I think of COVID-19. One is the market, where the market heading to. So the second piece is more about what we can do as an individual or as a business. The first part is a lot of it will be based on opinions. It could be based on data as well, but a lot of things that people are talking about, I think it's useful to know. But at the same time, the more important thing is that what can you do about it? That what can I do about it? What can you, Sam, do about it? That is more important, because it doesn't matter what the market will turns out. What matters is that what are you doing with it
Yeah,
to take the opportunities. So what I'm seeing is that, of course, there will be more opportunities coming up in the market, 100%. We are likely to see a recession. So in fact, by definition, we are already entering a recession. So basically the recession, the definition of the recession is that when we have two consecutive decline in GDP, gross domestic product, and if you see 2 quarters consecutively, which is a 6 months period, and that is the definition of recession. So if you look at by definitions, like there's a 100% less output we are seeing over the last few months and going to be in the next few months. So by definition, we are heading to recession. There's no surprise that in a few months' time, you see headlines from BBC or Financial Times, oh, we are entering recession. So it will not be a surprise to me at all,
yeah,
because it seems like we are entering the recession. So in a recession, so we might be expecting more employment coming up because of people losing their jobs. You see it very clearly, like hotel industry, airline industry.
yeah,
Those are the industry that is going to be declining, and it's going to take a while for them to back up to the normal level.
yeah,
And because of all this social distancing. The bigger risk I'm seeing is that it might be, you never know whether there's a second wave of the virus coming back again in the future, in maybe half a year or a year time. So that's the risk I'm seeing. And definitely in opportunity in the property market, if you look at social housing, there's already a lot of queues in many councils. It was pre-COVID, but now the post-COVID, there will be more people claiming social housing benefits because they're losing their job. And I know the government trying to stop the repossession right now during this COVID period, but they're not going to solve the underlying problem. If someone is not able to pay their mortgage now and lose their job now and struggle to financially now, how likely are they going to catch up in the future after COVID? I'm not saying that they're not likely. They're very likely to struggle again, like after this COVID, like even though they can kind of freeze their payment at the moment. So that's why there's opportunities coming up for like, for example, lease option, or you can buy cash, and those things will present itself as well. But it will take a good months or maybe a year time to see all this pain to realize in the market. But at the moment, we are still early at the stage. And also think about commercial. I'm sure you can see as well for retail, for office space, for park, for hotel. Those are the struggling industry right now. And I can imagine there will be lots of them will be going on sale because the business running out, and people might not need as much as commercial space, and pub might be closing up because of cash flow problem, and hotel might be closing up because there's lack of demand, and it just on and on. There's so many opportunities out there coming up post COVID-19. And the second piece is more about what you can do.
And what can you do? How can you make the most of this opportunity right now?
There's a lot of things we can do right now. So I would say for me, for our business at this point of time, it's more about building relationship with potential investors, building relationship with potential people that can bring us deal, and then building relationship of the infrastructure and the knowledge, the power team, then how you can do it. So study things that works, and study the potential that could come up. So understand the planning rules and all this. Like when the opportunity arises, we need to go hit hard on it. And for us, is that it's more about focusing as well. So we're still focusing our bread and butter, doing HMO, but we're also looking at other strategy, other area. But we are still looking at our core. So it's not to lose focus of the shiny pennies. There's too many things you can do out there, all the things that I mentioned. There's a lot, but it's about choosing one or two things to stay laser focused, and that's how you get the deals. And that's what our learning as well in the past 3 years, that we are looking at deals. And because if there's a psychology, I forgot the term about it, is that when you imagine when you start to buy a car, when you think about, let's say you buy a Mercedes, let's say C-Class, and before you think about buying that car, you rarely see those cars on the street. But when you start thinking about it, you're going to buy Mercedes C-Class white, and all of a sudden it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's about what you're focusing, what is in your mind. So if those are things in your mind, those are things that you're focusing on, one or two things, those opportunity will present itself.
Completely agree with you 100%. And I think I could speak to you about property all day, and I'm looking forward to actually catching up with you 6-12 months down the line when all of this has kind of taken its course, because I agree with almost everything that you say as well. So I just wanted to thank you, Aaron, for coming on with us today and sharing what you're up to. If somebody wanted to reach out and find you, what's the best way that they can catch up with you? Sure.
The best way to catch up with me is through social media. So my name is Aaron Kock, AARONKOK. So if you look for me on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook, you can find me. So Instagram and Facebook, my handle is Aaron Cock Official. So if you find me there, we send me a message and we can have a chat. And if you're interested in Square Mile Property Meet,
Yes.
same as well. If you go to Facebook, search Square Mile Property Meet, and then you will find our page.
Highly recommend that. I'll make sure all the links are in the show notes. Thank you again for joining us, Aaron.
Thank you, Sam.
We'll catch up soon. Have a great day.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in today. We've got lots more super active property people coming up, so keep up to date. Click the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, leave us a comment, share us and find us across social media, and we'll see you next time.